And now you can see the Backseat Mogul Show in all its video glory on our YouTube page at roughedge.tv.
Rough Edge FM at roughedgefm.com.
There's no better place for breakfast or lunch than Harbor Cove Cafe. This hidden treasure, located in the beautiful Ventura Harbor, is locally owned and operated and serves your favorites like hamburgers, sandwiches, and fish and chips, as well as island specialties like their delicious Loco Moco and famous Hawaiian burrito. Enjoy the magnificent view of Ventura's famous Two Trees and the Topa Topa Mountains while you sip on something from their full espresso bar, or perhaps tip back a cocktail mixed up by the legendary Dazu Prime. For more information, please visit online at harborcovecafe.net or give them a call at 805-658-1639. Harbor Cove Cafe, located at 1867 Spinnaker Drive in the Ventura Harbor. We'll see you there.
Showbiz is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs for no good reason. There's also a bad side.
This is the Backseat Mogul Show live here on Rough Edge FM. I am R. Scott Bolton. I am the Backseat Mogul, and this is the show where we talk about show business. Background's not working too great today, but it'll work. I'll explain it in a little while. We'll talk a little bit about the background and what it signifies for this particular week. First off, though, we're going to start with talking about this particular Blu-ray. It's always hard to get it to. There you go. Still can't see it. There we go. I'll show you a better picture. Hold on. There we go. Common Law Wife, double feature with Jenny Wife Child. This is from our friends at Film Masters. Film Masters, of course, does the restoration processes that are so amazing, taking vintage films that are in really lousy condition and making them in nearly perfect condition, as a matter of fact. This is a collaboration they did with Something Weird Video. If you're familiar with Something Weird Video, you know that their trade is videos that contain something weird. So you get to see that when you watch this particular double feature. The first film was from 1963. That's Common Law Wife. The second one, I believe, is from 1968. And like the blaxploitation era of the 70s, in the 60s, apparently there was a Hicksploitation era. Now, I wasn't aware of this. Pretty interesting. But there's stories about backwoods folk and the bizarre relationships and titillating storylines that they had set up for these things. And they're kind of like the Grindhouse movies, where they were making taking these films around to various theaters and sharing them on a national basis. The only way they could get out was distributing them that way. It's fascinating because, neither one of these movies are movies that people would probably remember. They're movies that were designed at the time to be in and out of theaters to make as much money as they could at the time, but they were exploitation pictures. There's no question. There's a little bit of suggested nudity in both pictures. There's a little bit of actual nudity in one of the pictures, which kind of surprised me. The storylines are kind of harsh and vicious. Both of them concern abusing men and their younger wives and their the women's unhappiness. And both of them are filled with threats of violence, if not actual violence, and just generally unhappy times for people. It's interesting because I guess at some point these films obviously did well enough that they were out there, but it's more interesting for historical purposes. And that's what I love about what Film Masters does. Sorry about that. They take these vintage movies and restore them so you get to see them in their full, if not original, better than original glory. And you get to look at the history of things. You get to see the history of what kind of movies were being made back then. What kind of movies were people going to see back then? How were these movies being made? How were these movies being written? How were they shot? How were they distributed? Like I said, I believe it was a lot like the Grindhouse films. That's why I love watching these movies. I love seeing not only the craft of making movies, but also what's going on in the background. You know, what did a telephone look like back then? What kind of furniture did people have? How did they dress? The cars are all, you know, vintage cars because they were the cars from 1963 and probably before, and etc. So you get a little bit of history in this as you watch it as well. The movies, you know, you can take them or leave them. I will say this, in both movies, the lead performance by the lead actress is actually really good. I was very, very impressed. We have here Annabelle Weinick from the Common Law Wife, and she's really good. She's a tragic character, but her performance is excellent. You feel for her. You get her side of this kind of thing. So she's excellent in that as well. And then in Jenny Wife Child, we have Beverly Lunsford, who again plays the abused wife, and she too gives an excellent performance in this less than excellent movie. But again, if you're viewing it for historical purposes, which is what's wonderful about Film Masters, you get to see things that you wouldn't normally see. You get to see a piece of film history, whether it's a great piece of film history or not. It's still a piece of film history. Of particular interest in this is a couple of things. The first movie, Common Law Wife, the restoration is good, but it's not as good as you've seen from other versions of Film Masters product. But there's a reason for that. The movie started out as a different title. I think it was called Wild Rose originally, and it was never finished. It was put aside unfinished for 5 or 6 years and then picked up and restarted again. So drastically so that the lead actress again in one of the films changes, not the lead actress, but one of the leads, to the point that filmmakers aren't sure whether another actress took over or if the same actress just changed over the years. And it's obvious in the movie because it gets a little confusing sometimes, because here's one character in this scene, and then she travels to a house and it's a completely different look for her, even almost different clothes. They tried to match them up, but after that many years, it was kind of difficult. So it's kind of interesting. And based on what I've read, nobody really knows for sure if it was another actress or just the actress after a span of years. So that was pretty interesting. Common Law Wife is the least of the two, which is interesting because it's the lead feature in this double feature. But it's rough. Let's say it's rough. And I think a lot of that has to do with the span of years between the original product and the eventual finished product that they have there. Jenny Wife Child is a much better transfer, a clearer image. A lot of that has to do with Film Masters, of course, but it also has to do with a cinematographer whose name was Vilmos Zsigmond. Vilmos went on from Jenny Wife Child in 1968 to being a nominee for 4 different Oscars, and he actually won an Oscar for cinematography for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Excuse me. So again, from a historic purpose, you get to see Vilmos's work, and he's a master. Anytime you see a Vilmos Zsigmond film, you know you're going to see incredible cinematography. And so you get to see what he did back in 1968 and see how his career followed through for that, all the way to the Oscar that he won for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Very cool, I think, as a matter of fact. So anyway, this double feature is now available, and you can pick it up and put it in your collection. Even if you're not, if you're a film fan, not necessarily a film historian, but if you're a film fan, this kind of thing belongs on your shelf because it is a piece of film history. And that's the thing that I love most about Film Masters restorations. Their film history is not just in seeing the films themselves, but in, as I said earlier, seeing the craft of the film, seeing the era the film was shot in, imagining what was in people's minds as they watched these films back there, 63 years ago. So that's pretty impressive. So again, Film Masters always does a great job. I'll always review any new releases they have. And this one in particular, it was interesting because when I first saw it, I thought, who's interested in the Backwoods double feature? That's weird. And the advertising was also a little iffy. On the back of the DVD here, it says Backwoods Lovin' at its best. Sounds kind of dirty and sounds kind of raunchy, but you sit down and you watch it and you see, okay, well, that's what was scintillating back in the early 60s and, of course, 1968 when the second film was made. Apologies. All right, I just got a message so I know what's going on. James Lantine is doing a live feed from Santa Paula Veterans Park today, and I was thinking about going out there and joining him, so I might. The one thing, he was all set up to do the recording. He had all the equipment he needed, the microphones, the cameras, and everything else, even a portable Wi-Fi. And all of a sudden it dawned on him, wait, do they have power? It's kind of important. So he's still waiting on the power out there. The second thing I wanted to talk about today, and it will be a brief show today because John is still out, and I'm doing this from Rough Edge Studios West, which is basically my office at home. I couldn't do a show today without talking about the late, great Donald Sutherland. Donald Sutherland is one of those actors whose careers I have followed forever. Anytime he was in something, I knew it would be worth watching. Whether the movie was any good or not, you knew that Donald Sutherland was going to be good. And he never failed us that way, never failed us. His characters were vast and various. He always made you believe that he was who he was portraying. And he passed away this week, but left behind a huge block of movies. I'm going to go through a few of them right now. And I wanted everybody to know that these are just movies I chose off of his list. He has 199 credits on the Internet Movie Database. One more credit for an upcoming film that's in pre-production. So I don't think he's going to get that credit, which is unfortunate because he would have hit it even 200. But the man was truly an amazing actor. And I just... It's tough to say, you're going to miss them and you're going to miss their work when they're almost 90 years old. But at the same time, it makes you go back and remember what they did in the past. And that's what I want to do today, just go through some of Donald Sutherland's best roles. Now, these are my favorites, and your favorites are going to be different. A lot of them are going to be commingled. They're going to be everybody's favorites. And that's the way things should be. But Donald Sutherland, I had to pay tribute to him today because he is a true legend. And as I said, anytime he was in anything, you knew it was going to be good, which brings me to I'm wearing my Animal House hat in his honor today. And the background here is President Snow's throne from the Hunger Games. So we'll get to those shortly, though. He began his career in 1962. There was something he did called Studio 4. I couldn't find any real information on it, no photos for sure, so I can't share that one with you. But 1962 to 2024, that's 62 years in the film industry. That's pretty good. And to maintain the quality of his work as he did through those years, very, very impressive. In cheat sheet here. 1964, he was in Castle of the Living Dead, and I believe that's Christopher Lee standing there next to him in Castle of the Living Dead. I don't know if it's one of Roger Corman's productions or not, but if you ask me, it sure sounds like it. So moving ahead, we had 1967 to the classic The Dirty Dozen. And there's Donald with Lee Marvin on the screen there. A great movie. If you haven't seen that, you should check that one out. The next movie he made in 1970, no, not the next movie he made, the next one I chose, it was the one that probably put him big time on the map, and that was MASH. MASH was the first appearance of Hawkeye Pierce on the screen, and Donald Sutherland started that role. It was based on a book, of course, and then later on played by Alan Alda. But the movie is considered to this day a classic. And again, Sutherland was fantastic in it. And it's funny that as ingrained as Alan Alda is as Hawkeye Pierce, Donald Sutherland is still remembered for that role too. And that tells you a whole lot about him. Next up, we have from 1970, Kelly's Heroes. And there's Donald there. I'm getting in the image there. There's Donald Sutherland there playing that role. That's a fun movie. If you haven't seen Kelly's Heroes, I highly suggest you see it soon. It's terrific, and his character is wild in that movie. It's just a blast to watch Donald Sutherland in that. Up next, we have Clute, where he played a detective who was working with a prostitute trying to solve a murder. Again, you can see the difference between the characters. Look, here's Kelly's Heroes, and here's Clute. Got a suit on, got a tie. He's a clean shaven, haircut short, playing a different kind of role. And the roles are as different as the looks. And yet Sutherland nailed them both. So big props for that. Another movie that he did, Don't Look Now, was from 1973. I would never have seen this movie if it wasn't for the class I took at Ventura College. I took 2 years of film study at Ventura College, and I say this a lot because I wish I could remember the instructor's name, because she introduced me to films that I never would have seen. She taught us things that I never would have thought of. And, you know, sometimes I didn't necessarily agree. Sometimes like, no, that's just bad. She would try to explain it away that it was art. No, it's just bad. But, you know, you can agree to disagree. And that's what we did in that. And I never would have seen Don't Look Now if it hadn't been for that class. But it's a very scary, very strange picture. So if you're interested, I would say check it out. Day of the Locust, he did in 1975. Great movie there. Another very disturbing film, but an excellent film. And again, Sutherland, I don't have to keep saying it, do I? Sutherland is great in everything. One of my favorite movies of all time, and one of the funniest movies I'd ever seen, is the pre-airplane Kentucky Fried Movie. And Donald played a pretty helpless waiter in this, as you can see here. Yes, that's Donald with his face in the cake. He's fell down into the cake in that scene. It did a little bit of slapstick for that. And that was Kentucky Fried Movie from 1977, a raunchy, hysterical comedy that was a precursor to the airplane movies that came out shortly thereafter. Up next, of course, we have Animal House. Donald Sutherland played the professor in that film. Another great role for him. So almost underplayed. It's kind of a calm, gentle role for him in that movie, in that wild movie. And he was terrific in that as well, like he was in virtually everything. Another movie that I didn't like when I first saw it in theaters, because I'm that old that I saw this in theaters, but I later come to appreciate as a great science fiction movie, is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And in case you're wondering what Donald's pointing at there, he's identifying somebody as a non-pod person. So his reaction is calling out this person who's not a pod person and calling all the other pod persons to come forward. Next up, that was from, by the way, Invasion of the Body Snatchers was 1978. Ordinary People from 1980. I don't understand how, I think both Mary Tyler Moore and Timothy Hutton were nominated for Oscars that year, but I don't believe that Donald Sutherland was. And to this day, Donald Sutherland has never won an Oscar. I just don't comprehend that. I mean, I know there's a lot of things in motion. You always have to think about who was working next to him and those kind of things. But really, somebody with that talent never won an Oscar. I just don't understand that at all. And he definitely earned an Oscar nomination at the very least for Ordinary People. Directed by Robert Redford, went on to win Best Picture that year. And a great movie all the way around. With the performance in that is just heartbreaking. He's so good in Ordinary People. Eye of the Needle was a Ken Follett action movie, spy movie that was out in 1991. And Donald Sutherland there playing a part in that film. Again, look at the difference. And, you know, I know it's a few years have passed, but it's a different role. The thing about him is that you can see it's Donald Sutherland, but you still know it's a different character. He he had that style. Then there was a Backdraft from 1991 as well. He did that firefighter film with Kurt Russell, and that's Donald Sutherland in that film. JFK was next. Played a creepy guy in JFK. Not one of my favorite movies. I think it's it's one of those conspiracy theory things that I can't stand. But Sutherland, again, perfect in that movie. Just eerie and sly, and you didn't know about him for sure. This next one from 1996 is something that a lot of people are talking about, and I don't know how Donald Sutherland would have felt about it, to see that this particular role is the role that I don't want to say most people remember, but that a lot of people cherish, tons of people cherish. And as I said, there's been talk about it all over the internet this week, and it's his appearance on The Simpsons. He played a character on The Simpsons, and people are just posting this over and over again about Sutherland and The Simpsons. And I think that tells you a lot about The Simpsons and its popularity. And I also think it tells you a lot about Donald Sutherland in this as well. So the fact that he did it, and the fact that he was good in it, of course, and the people loved him in it, that tells you a lot. Space Cowboys, one of my favorite movies. There's Donald in Space Cowboys. That was Clint Eastwood, Tommy Lee Jones, and Donald Sutherland, of course. I love that movie. It's not the world's greatest movie, but I love that movie. And Sutherland, again, was terrific in it. In 2004, he did a miniseries, which I have not seen, Salem's Lot. And I just looked it up. It says it's on Amazon Prime. I'm a huge Stephen King fan and a huge Donald Sutherland fan. So I'm going to check out Salem's Lot here probably this weekend on Amazon and see what that's all about. I did see the original version, of course, with David Soul. And there's a new movie that hasn't been released yet for Salem's Lot, but it's supposed to be plopping down sometime soon. But 2004, there was a series, Salem's Lot, which I have not seen. So I'm going to have to check that out very soon. He did The Mechanic in 2011. Not a great movie. Sutherland was great in it, of course, but it's a Jason Statham movie, so I thought I'd bring it up because, as everybody knows, I'm a huge Jason Statham fan. And then, of course, here's The Hunger Games, and that's Sutherland in The Hunger Games. Arms outstretched, nice suit. The President Snow in that, and he was terrific in that as well. There's one here that I missed. I'm going to pull it up right now because it was his last on-screen performance as far as I can tell. And that is Mr. Harrigan's Phone. Again, another movie based on a Stephen King book. Short story, I believe, actually. Maybe a novella. But Sutherland was great in that movie. And it was one of those movies, as you're watching it, you can see that he's rather frail in the movie. But at the same time, you weren't sure that he was acting frail or if he was in fact actually frail. But regardless, he was terrific in Mr. Harrigan's Phone. It's about a young boy who befriends this older man, and the older man hires the boy to read to him, and the boy learns a lot from the books that he's reading to this older man, to Donald Sutherland here. And I don't want to give much away. I just want to, I almost did. I almost went too far, but I did. I don't want to do that. So check out Mr. Harrigan's Phone. I believe it's a Netflix original, so you can find it there. And all these streaming services are sharing everything everywhere these days. So you can probably find it pretty much anywhere you want to watch it. And so much for that. So anyway, just wanted to briefly go through some of Donald Sutherland's 199 roles that are available. Please look him up, go back, stream everything you can find with Donald Sutherland in it. Even if the movie's no good, Donald Sutherland's going to be good in it. He always was. Again, one of those people that if he was in a movie, you felt comfortable with it because you knew that you were going to get some Donald Sutherland, and his characters are all so different and so real, and they felt like actual people. They didn't feel like a guy playing a role. Even though you knew it was Donald Sutherland, they felt like a real, genuine person, a real character. And that's what he always brought to the role. He will be missed. I'm not sure there'll ever be anybody like Donald Sutherland. The range of what he did, the brilliance of what he did is pretty spectacular. So I just have to give props to Donald Sutherland. Shouldn't say somebody's name on the tribute show. Anyway, I'm closing out here, but I did want to say briefly that I'm looking forward to seeing Horizon. I plan on going next week sometime so we can talk about that. That is Kevin Costner's 3-hour epic, the first part of his Western series that he apparently mortgaged his home for. So we're hoping that does some box office for him. He wants to do 4 total. The first one's finished, will be out this coming Friday. And, it's Costner in a Western. I'm very much looking forward to seeing it. I will tell you this, the critics' reviews right now aren't great, but they weren't great for Waterworld or for The Postman either, and those are both considered kind of semi-classics now. So we'll see what happens with this. I am anxious, looking forward to it, so we'll be talking about that very soon. Also, The Bike Riders. I have plans to go see that on Tuesday, so we'll be talking about that as well on next week's show. All right, folks. Well, that's it for today. Again, a short show because I'm heading out of here. Going to go meet James out at the Veterans Park where he's broadcasting live. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please go check out more Donald Sutherland films. And if you're so inclined, check out the Backwoods Double Feature from Film Masters and Something Weird Video. There's so much there that's not in the original film that you can see from watching these vintage films. it's worth checking out. And also the cinematography by Vilmos Zsigmond in 1968, also noteworthy. You'll see it when you see it. All right. Thanks again. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Brought to you by The Grape, Ventura County's premier jazz venue and cocktail lounge, located at 2733 East Main Street in Ventura. For menu and music schedule, visit them online at thegrape.club. This has been a Rough Edge Studios production.